Ay, gran hijueputa. El que tenga de duro.
August 10th, 2026, 7:34 in the morning, Chocó, Colombia. The ground tore open from 107 kilometers underground, and within days it became one of the deadliest earthquakes this country has seen in decades. At that depth, deeper than the internationally recognized edge of space, which starts just 100 kilometers up, the shaking is supposed to fade out long before it reaches anyone. This one didn't fade. It reached Cali, it reached Pereira, it reached Bogota, 240 kilometers away. It crossed into Ecuador and Panama.
Uy, no.
The magnitude, 7.4. The buildings damaged, more than 1,600. The death toll, confirmed by Colombia's forensic authorities, more than 227, and still rising. For 2 straight days, rescue crews have been racing. A clock doctors call the 72-hour window, the point after which the odds of finding anyone alive start collapsing as fast as the buildings did. This is natural destruction. This is the story of an earthquake that broke almost every assumption about depth, distance, and danger. One woman's 12 hours underground, and why what happened in Chocó matters far beyond Colombia's borders.
Ay, señor. Ay. No me digas. No.
Poderoso.
Ay, Diosito. Ay, Dios, no más, Dios mío.
Corremos para acá, los cables.
This is natural destruction. This is the story of an earthquake that broke almost every assumption about depth, distance, and danger. One woman's 12 hours underground, and why what happened in Chocó matters far beyond Colombia's borders. Natural destruction isn't a news channel, and it isn't a weather channel. Every disaster we cover, we take apart through 3 lenses. We're not chasing the fastest headline. We're chasing the full picture, the one that's usually gone by the time the news cycle moves on. If that's the kind of channel you've been looking for, you're in the right place. By Monday afternoon, Colombia's president, Abelardo de la Espriella, in office for exactly 3 days, declares a national emergency and deploys the military. By Monday evening, the confirmed toll stands at 132, and emergency crews report a partial collapse at the University Hospital of the Valley in Cali, with patients trapped inside. By Tuesday, August 11th, the toll climbs past 181, with nearly 2,600 injured, and Cali's mayor reports at least 95 deaths in that city alone. By Wednesday, August 12th, as this video is being written, Colombia's Forensic Institute confirms more than 227 dead, with officials quietly acknowledging the real number is likely higher. Let's start with the question every seismologist in Colombia has been asked this week. How does an earthquake 107 kilometers underground do this much damage, this far from where it started? Colombia sits on top of 3 tectonic plates grinding against each other at once: the Nazca Plate, the Caribbean Plate, and the South American Plate. Off the Pacific coast, the Nazca Plate is sliding beneath the South American Plate at roughly 7 centimeters a year. That sounds slow. Over millions of years, it is anything but. As that slab of oceanic crust sinks deeper, heat and pressure build. Water trapped inside its minerals gets squeezed out, raising the pressure in the surrounding rock until it fractures, a process scientists call dehydration, embrittlement. Colombian seismologist Gina Villalobos told local media this week that the quake was simply normal behavior of the tectonic plates in the region, nothing to do with the season, the climate, or anything on the surface. Here's the part that surprises most people. When a rupture happens 107 kilometers down instead of 10 or 15, the energy doesn't get weaker. It gets wider. The seismic waves travel through so much rock before reaching the surface that they spread across an enormous area instead of slamming into one city with concentrated force. It's also why there was no tsunami warning. Tsunamis form when a shallow undersea rupture violently displaces the seafloor. At 107 kilometers down, there was no seafloor to displace. The danger here was never the ocean. It was the ground itself, spread across hundreds of kilometers. And Colombia isn't new to this, not even close.
Subiendo de la quinta para arriba. Uy, Diosito.
Now picture what that physics actually looked like on the ground in the first 60 seconds. Across the city, dust rose over entire blocks as walls came down. Power failed. Traffic lights went dark. People who had been walking to work, dropping off kids, opening shops for the morning, ordinary Monday things, found themselves standing in the street, staring at buildings they had walked past 100 times without a second thought.
Ya, tranquilos. Mierda.
At the University Hospital of the Valley, part of the pediatrics wing collapsed with patients still inside. Doctors and nurses evacuated who they could to a gymnasium at a nearby school, setting up beds on the floor. Then, in thousands of neighborhoods at once, the noise stopped. That's the part disaster footage rarely captures. Not the collapse, but what comes right after it. The silence. Families standing outside their own front doors, afraid to go back in because a building that looks fine from the sidewalk can be carrying damage no one can see. So what do we actually take from this? Here's the fact worth carrying with you. Every major Colombian earthquake of the last half-century has rewritten the country's building code. 1979 gave Colombia its first seismic standard. 1999 gave it NSR 98. Today's code, NSR 10, is why modern towers in Bogota and Medellin are engineered to bend instead of break, deep foundation piles, flexible joints, walls designed to sway rather than shatter. That's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath almost every disaster like this one. The buildings that kill people are rarely the ones struck hardest. They're usually the ones built the cheapest, the fastest, the most informally, decades before anyone updated the rules.
¡Ay, Dios mío! ¡Ay, Dios mío, mi vida! ¡Mi mamá! ¡Se cayó, mi amor! ¡Se cayó! ¡Se cayó! ¡Uy, tan largo!
Uy, no.
Somewhere in that wreckage, search teams are still listening for another voice, still hoping the 72-hour window hasn't fully closed for someone else's Daniela Largo. We'll keep following this story as the numbers change, because they will, they almost always do, in the days after a disaster like this. Not to sensationalize it, to make sure the people behind the statistics don't quietly disappear once the story stops trending. That's what this channel is for. Not to move on the moment the ground stops shaking, but to stay long enough to understand why it shook the way it did, and who was still standing there when it finally stopped, until the next one. Take care of the people around you. The ground under all of us is a lot less permanent than it feels.